What's up, guys? Adam back again with RA Returners, coming at you for another set review, and this is the last of the main elements, which is water. I think they actually got some pretty cool cards this set. I'm excited for a few. Maybe we'll finally have a water tech that doesn't have to rely on Leyland Vikings, but I doubt it. That combo is just really good. So let's go ahead and look at the water cards they got this set and see which ones are good and which ones aren't. Alright, so first up we got Agrias. She's a 60p 7k Job Knight. If you control 7 or more characters, she gets plus 2,000 power. And when she enters the field, turn over one card at a time from your deck until a character of cost 3 or less is revealed, and play it onto the field. Then shuffle all the other cards and return them to the bottom of your deck. So this card's effect is pretty cool. There's not much like it in the game. That kind of keeps going until it finds something legal. But there's just too much opportunity to whiff, and you have to really cater your deck to her like really hard in order to not whiff. And when I say whiff, I mean like maybe you have a character that's already on the field and you flip it. Now that's not legal, so that's going to go at the bottom, and she's not going to get anything. If you have a light card and then you reveal a light card, same deal. Same with dark. Obviously, like the game's going to prevent any kind of illegal board state from happening off her flips. So I don't see her seeing a lot of competitive play. Maybe in Night she's okay, but I feel like I'd rather just run the other Agrias, the other two actually. I think both are better. Maybe she's a cool build around card. Like if you guys have any cool ideas, be sure to let me know, because I think right now this card is maybe the worst legendary in the set, and maybe second only to the other water legendary that we'll go over soon. Next up, we got Gawain. He's a 3CP 7k, and he doesn't receive damage from forwards abilities. Not great. The text isn't that great. I mean, he's not going to die from forwards ability, sure, but backups like Facility are still going to get him. Summons are still going to kill him. He's just not that resilient. It's too limited in what it does. And, I mean, he is a knight, which is nice, so maybe in a Knight's deck, but I still feel like that deck's missing something, and I'm not sure what it is. So I don't think Gawain's going to save that deck, and I don't think he's going to see much play in any other deck. Then we got Kamari. He is a 60p 9k. The cost required to play Kamari onto the field is reduced by 1 for each Job Guardian you control. The Job Guardians other than Kamari cannot be chosen by opponents' abilities, and Category 10 characters other than Kamari cannot be chosen by summons. Opponents, obviously, for both. So they tried to push Guardians pretty hard in this set, and this is kind of like your win card off of it, right? Like, he's the card that is making you want to play that archetype. Problem is, he's not protecting himself, and he's not that hard to kill. I mean, yeah, his power level is pretty decent. Yeah, you can technically make him free, but you kill him, and it kind of leaves like the other Guardians pretty wide open. Maybe he sees play in like some kind of Guardian deck where it's like a small Guardian package and that ends up being good, but I don't foresee just like a straight up Guardian deck being that great. I think some of the Guardians have some strong cards, but I think Kamari and Orin missed it just by a little bit. I think the other Guardians are pretty decent, but those two are a bit of a whiff for me, in my opinion. Next up, we got Chemist. It's a 2CP backup standard unit for 2 water tap. Choose a forward, activate it. This is Astrologian that does the same thing, just category 5 now. So really the only implications are in title and a card that we'll go over soon that may make this card actually better. Not much more to be said about that. Sahagin, it's a 2CP water monster. Put him in the break zone, choose up to 2 forwards you control, activate him. They gain 1,000 power until end of turn. Discard Sahagin, choose one forward of cost 1, return it to its owner's hand. You can only use this ability if Sahagin's in your hand. The last ability, not that relevant. Your big targets are like Leo and Snow. And Snow is probably going to have backup Sarah if they're still playing it. So you're probably not hitting that. Not many people are playing Leo, so good luck hitting that. And even then, like bumping a 1-drop, they're just going to play it again. So the first ability, however, pretty decent. Being able to activate 2 forwards and give them 1,000 power is pretty good. The problem is there's not much surprise to it. Like, this has to already kind of be out. And I think there's cards that just do it better. Maybe if you're playing a monster deck, maybe this sees play, but I just don't think it makes the cut, to be honest. Next up, we got Geoscano. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. It's a 2 CP monster. When a forward your opponent controls returns to its owner's hand from the field, it becomes a forward with 7,000 power, and if he receives damage, the damage is reduced by 1,000. It's okay. It's definitely on the weaker end of the flip monsters, in my opinion. It's a 7k that takes 1k less. That's not that big. If it was an 8k, I'd be a little bit higher on it. Sure, water decks are bumping a lot of cards. Leviathan's a good card, so could see play, but I don't think it's going to be that great. It's definitely a card that's going to have to be tested pretty heavily, but I think it's going to have a hard time finding a slot in your deck. Next up, we got White Mage. It's a 3 CP 6k. When it enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards you control, activate them. So this kind of does the same thing as that Sahagin we just talked about, but on a body, which I think is better. Activating 2 forwards is a great ability. It's up to, so you can only activate 1 if you really want to. It's only 1k under curve, which isn't terrible for the ability that it has. It's a superstar in sealed for sure. I'm not sure it's going to see too much constructed play, but if ice is a problem and a lot of things are getting dulled, this could be a good card that can kind of help you undull your forwards, so that they're up for defense, or maybe you can attack and play this more aggressively and then ready them so that, again, they're still up for defense. Next up, we got Styx. She's a 5 CP AK. She's the water general. When she enters the field, choose 1 forward. If the cost paid to player was only water CP, return it to its owner's hand. And then for S2 water tap, until end of turn, all forwards opponent control lose 5,000 power. You can only use this ability if you have received 5 points of damage or more. So she's okay. She's definitely, again, on the lower end of the generals for me. She might be the worst one, honestly, if I had to rate them all. There's enough bump that's cheap in water that they don't need a forward that also bumps your opponent's stuff. So that's kind of whatever. Maybe she's like a 1 of or something. I don't know, because her S is just very limiting. The fact they have to be on 5 points of damage isn't that great. If you are on 5, it can combo pretty well with Cognazzo, I guess. But you're still spending 4 CP, a copy of her and then 2 water mana. So, again, I don't think she's that great. I don't think she's going to see that much play, but she's not terrible. Next, we got Sarah, Final Fantasy Legends. She's a 7 CP Warrior of Light backup. I think that's the first time we've seen that. When she enters the field, you may search for 1 job Warrior of Light costs 4 or less, other than Light and Dark, and play it onto the field. So I think she's pretty decent. It is pretty steep. It costs 7, but it does get you whatever color Warrior Light that you want, 4 or less. So you could get, Earth Wool, you could get Ingus, Refia, all that stuff. So it's getting you a card, it's playing it onto the field, so it's almost like, you're paying 4 CP, kinda. So in a Tribal Warrior Light deck, it's going to be great. You're going to want at least 1 of these, maybe 2. Maybe in like Water X Warrior of Light, you might want to run this as a 1 of. It does kind of suck that you can't get the Light Warrior Light, which is probably the one you want to play off this, but you can't. But still, for Tribal, it's a pretty good card. Next up, we got Dusk. He's the Water Warrior of Light. He's a 3 CP 6k. When he enters the field, if you control a job Warrior of Light forward other than Dusk, draw a card. And tap during your turn. The cost required to cast your next summon is reduced by 1. So, drawing a card's not bad. It does have to be another forward, so you can't really use the backup to draw the card, which kind of sucks. But, it's not terrible. Reducing a cost of a summon can be relevant. You could block and then maybe tap him to make a Fanfrit cost 1 CP, assuming that you have the rare unit out. That could be really good. I think maybe he's only going to fit in like Water Fire Warriors of Light or Water X Warriors of Light, or, the full-on Tribal, maybe like 3 or 4 color Warriors of Light. I think that's where he's going to go. Outside of those, I don't really see him play in just like a straight water deck. Next up, we got Legendary Titus. He's a 3 CP 7k with back attack. He's a Job Guardian. You can only pay CP produced by water backups to play Titus from your hand onto the field. And when he enters the field, select 1 of 2 following actions. Activate all water forwards and choose 1 water forward, and it gains plus 2,000 power until end of turn. I don't like this card that much. I think he's extremely slow and extremely telegraphed. I like the fact that they're printing more cards with back attack. I think that's great. But you have to have 3 open water CP, so really the only time he's not like crazy telegraphed, and even than he kind of still is you go from main 1 straight to attacks before you play anything with all your backups open. It does kind of suck that they have to be exactly water backups, so you can't use things like Cosmos or Chaos to pay for this. Shantoto, however, does count because she's all elements. So, I mean, it's just a super obvious play. It is also worthy to note that the activate all water forwards does affect your opponent's side of the board as well. So all water forwards are going to activate. So if you're playing the mirror, he's going to activate all water forwards. So he's a cute combat trick. Also, his drawback is only from your hand, so you can Phoenix him into play, but that's not like that's less obvious. If you're playing Water Fire and I see him in your break zone, like he's there. Like it's still telegraphed. So I don't think he's great. I think people will try him because he's a cute combat trick, but I think they'll realize that it's going to be really hard to play him against a good player and actually get a favorable trade, because a lot of times if it's that obvious, they're going to have something ready for him. Next, we got the 4 CP Titus. He's a 9K Job Guardian. When he enters the field, choose one character you control, return it to his owner's hand. I think this card's great. He's over curve. It says character, so you can actually abuse the fact that this drawback. Say return like a Shantoto to your hand so that you can play a second Shantoto in the game. Return cards that have already used their value to get more value, maybe like a Searcher to search again. Maybe return a Viking to draw a card, then replay the Viking, then draw another card. So you're basically almost playing him for free. Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think he's a good 1 of, 2 of maybe in some decks. And if you're playing Guardians, I think this is the Titus that you want to play for sure. Next up, we got Ninja. It's a 2CP 5K standard unit. When Ninja enters the field, choose 1 forward opponent controls. If the cost paid to play Ninja included 5 CP, it cannot block this turn. And then for 1 water tap, return Ninja to your hand. If Red Mage is my number 1 for these type of cards, I think Ninja is my number 2. I like this card a fair bit. If Water Fire is good, I think this card is in there. It's reusable. It can get you in points of damage maybe. You just play it with your backups, make it where something can't block, then swing through, and then repeat it the next turn, assuming that you have the Water CP open, which is really good. So yeah, I like this card a lot. I think it definitely sees play. Next, we got Halicarnassus. She's a 3CP 7K. When Halicarnassus enters the field, all forwards opponent control lose their abilities until end of turn. And then for tap, discard 2 summons, choose 1 forward, break it. This might be my favorite card in the set. I am extremely high on this card. I think it's a great card. I think it's going to slot in every mono water deck. It just does everything. It's on curve. It only costs 3. It's a Final Fantasy V character, which we'll get into a character later that makes that relevant. When it enters the field, it's going to blank everything. So, like, Dotalumas are going to be blanked. And it is forwards, it's not all characters, but their forwards are blank. So any kind of forward that's just pesky to deal with, that has some kind of field ability that's annoying. Any kind of buffs that they have on themselves, as long as it's not from the backups, they'll lose. So, like, say, like, the Water Warrior of Light that's buffing the standard units, like, that's gone. And then, not only that, but the second ability allows you to get rid of summons that have otherwise maybe, like, they don't have much use anymore. Say you have a Choo-Choo Lane and your opponent doesn't have anything dull, and you have a Poo-Poo, but you're pretty well off on cards because you're playing Layla Viking at that time. Just pitch them, tap her, and break something. Like, that's really good. Just straight break effects are so good. I mean, obviously there are characters that get around those effects, but there's not many. So I foresee her seeing a ton of play. I think she's probably the best water card in the set. I like her a ton. Next, we got Ferris. She's a 4CP 6K. If you control Lena forward, Ferris gains plus 2 levels of power. When she enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 Category 5 character among them to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of the deck in any order. So at first, I thought this card wasn't great when I first saw her, but the more I think about it, she's pretty good. She's also a Warrior of Light, which can be relevant. I don't really think she's going to fit in much there. But in a mono water deck, she actually has a fair amount of targets. So she's got Lena, obviously, which is going to power her up. And with Waka, that's going to make her a 9K. She's got Halicarnassus, the card we just talked about. That's a 5. She's got Knight. She's got, let's see, that new Chemist that we talked about. There's a lot of 5 characters that are just kind of like those generic characters that now she can grab. Fame Mimic Go-Go is another one. So I think she's actually pretty good, assuming that you're playing those cards. I think she's worth 1 or 2 of in your deck. just to get you an extra card. And then, you know, if you're running Lena, you know, she's just going to get pretty big, which, you know, good for water. Next, we got Braska. He's a 3 CP backup summoner. The cost required to play your job summoners onto the field is reduced by 1. It cannot become 0. He's okay. I don't really foresee a summoner deck becoming a thing yet. You know, Yuna's a summoner, Rydia's a summoner, Aiko's a summoner. Those are the big ones. He does reduce cost of backups, which is pretty cool. So now your Yuna's a 1 CP. So if you're running a water earth like summon deck with those cards in it, this guy might be worth it. Just to make you ramp insanely fast. But I don't foresee that deck being very good right now. I think it still needs more in order for it to be good. But maybe it's something I try it just for fun to see how good it is, but I don't expect it to be very strong. Next we got Mime. It's a 4 CP AK. When it enters the field, if the cost paid to play Mime included Earth CP, all forwards you control gain plus 2,000 power until end of turn. It's okay. It's on a standard unit body, which is probably the most relevant thing because Gipple is just a better card. It's just not a standard unit. So this is better like after the turn that is played as well. Like more like better than Gipple is because it's going to get that standard unit buff and everything like that. And you're only going to play it in like water earth standard units basically. But I don't foresee it seeing much play. It is a 5 character, so if you're playing, maybe if you're playing Ferris or something, it's not terrible. But I don't think it's good enough, even in the deck that it's obviously pushing. So yeah, meh. Next is new Yagrash. He's a 1 CP backup. When Yagrash enters the field, choose one backup other than Yagrash you control, return it to its owner's hand. Again, let you reuse some stuff that you know, otherwise couldn't be reused, like maybe Bronze or Shantotos, Seymours, things like that, which is pretty cool. So maybe in those decks, you'll see him as like a 1-of or something. He's not a good turn 1 backup. You don't want to return stuff to your hand early because then you're losing resources for playing him. Like you want to get something back that's going to immediately get you value again. I think he's pretty average. I don't think he's going to see terribly too much play. When I first saw these cards, I was excited because I thought there was going to be this rotation of 1 CP backups that weren't just generic, and that didn't happen. But maybe it'll happen in the future, and more elements will get stuff like this. But for now, I don't see him seeing too much play. But he can be cute with like Shantoto and things like that. Next, we got Oracle. It's a 2 CP standard unit backup, category 5 again, so this is another Ferris target. When Oracle enters the field, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Return these to the top and or bottom of your deck in any order. I love this card. This card's great. Fasolia is good right now, so this card lets you manipulate the top of your deck, which is awesome. It also is going to manipulate your next draw. So if you see both cards and you like it, you just put them back on top, and you're going to draw them next turn. It can also force your opponent to you know, attack differently, because if they see that I've put cards back on top and I'm playing a Fasolia deck, they might not want to attack if, you know, I've done certain things. So there's a mind game there. Just being able to filter the top of your deck to the bottom of your deck is also very good. And you can do one on top, one on bottom. I love this card a lot. The only thing it sucks is it's not breakable, and Water has a problem with kind of flooding their backline with things that can't be broken. So it's another one of those. But I love what it does. I think it's going to see a ton of play. It's a great card. Next, we got Leviathan. So 4 CP summon, EX Burst. Choose one forward of cost 4 or less, return it to its owner's hand. If Leviathan results in an EX Burst, return it to its owner's hand and draw a card instead. I don't like this card. It's decent with like Ephemeral Summoner in Fasolia because you can guarantee the card draw. But I would rather just run Opus 1 Leviathan because at least then I can bump whatever I want. It's not limited to 4 or less. That's the one thing that just gets me. I wish it wasn't limited to 4 or less, and I think this card would be okay. I would run this over Opus 1 if that was the case in a Fasolia deck, just because, you know, I'm just going to put it on top anyways. But as it stands now, I'd rather slot in Opus 1 Leviathan over this card. Then we got Waka. He's a 2 CP water backup. He's a Guardian. For tap, choose one category 10 forward you control. It gains 1,000 power until end of turn. I think he's pretty decent. I think the category 10 forwards that you buff are pretty good. Give him 1,000 power. This is more relevant than, say, like Ondor or Lebro, which kind of do this now for their categories. except category 10 forwards that just have a better power level in terms of standard. Great title card, obviously. This could see play in like Water, Wind, maybe. Maybe Pain's enough for it to see play, and maybe if you're playing like the Guardian deck, obviously you're going to play this because it reduces Kamari's cost, and you know, it can give your Titus 1,000 power, give your Jack 1,000 power, things like that. So I think it's pretty good. I think it'll see a little bit of play, but it's not like anything spectacular, but it is good at what it does. Yeah, so that's it for the water cards. I think they got a fair amount of good stuff. Halicarnassus, obviously, I think is insane, and I think is just going to slot right in. And I think they got a pretty fair amount of power cards that you're just going to see in a lot of decks. So, yeah, I think Water's pretty good going forward. You know, still got access to the Layla Viking Gidget, which isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Now that Turbo is kind of got the ban hammer on Thaumaturge and Gesper, it's going to open it up to, you know, playing slow again, which Water loves to do. So, with that, I guess I'll see you guys on the Light and Dark review. See you later. Peace.